From the Oklahoman newsroom, it's time for a college softball update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with columnist Barry Trammell, OU softball writer Brooke Pryor. And guys, the NCAA tournament is on the doorstep. We're about there. Regional play starting this week. 16 sites around the country, one of them being Norman, one of them being Fayetteville, where Oklahoma State will travel, OU will host. But we're at least starting to get an idea of the 8 teams that might be here in Oklahoma City in a couple weeks. And Brooke, as the Sooners look at it, they got to be pretty pleased with how things have played out here for them. You had a chance to talk with some players and Patty Gasso yesterday. What's sort of the vibe right now with this team?
You know, I think that they're pleased, obviously, that they are hosting a regional and they have the right to host a super regional should they advance past this weekend. But I think that there is some maybe uneasiness when it comes to how their regional kind of broke down or how their specific bracket broke down, that 14 pod. You've got Missouri, Tulsa, and Boston U, and each one of those teams, I think Paige Lowry said it best yesterday, there's a story with all of them. You know, there's the Missouri, Paige Lowry's a Missouri transfer, Parker Conrad, also a transfer from Missouri. You've got Tulsa, a team that played them really tough this year and nearly ended their season last year, and then you've got BU, which is one of their 3 losses. So I think OU is, you know, they feel good about the fact that they are a top 5 seed, but then they look at their regional and it kind of feels like the committee threw as much drama their way as they possibly could. And when you look at it that way, I mean, we asked Patty Gasso if she had any comment about the committee's thought process behind it, and she just kind of shook her head and said no comment, and then elaborated later on, just kind of saying the same thing that Paige Lowry said. So I think OU's kind of feeling like they just want to go for, that the committee's trying to go for the storylines every year. It's the same way that OU was in the Auburn Regional last year after beating them in the national championship, the same way that they played Alabama a couple years ago in a regional. Seems like there's always some kind of drama, made-for-TV situation that kind of shakes out with OU and its regionals.
Yeah, I think it's hard to dispute, you know, that they do have some drama built into their regional assignments, Barry, but you kind of wonder, or at least I do, you know, with the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma's backyard, not that their seeding gets affected by things, but does the committee say, you know what, these guys are going to be playing in their own backyard. If they make the Women's College World Series, we're not going to cut them any slack when it comes to regional and super regionals. Do you get that sense with Oklahoma at all?
No, I really don't. I mean, here's the deal about Missouri. They're 28 and 27. Why would anybody be complaining about having to match up against a team that's 500 in the NCAA tournament? So most of this is geographical. There's regionals in Fayetteville and Norman. They couldn't send OSU to Norman. They got to go to Fayetteville. So that means if Missouri's the number 2 seed, they got to come to Norman. So most of this is done by geography. I think in committee rooms, you know, we see this a lot with basketball, both men's and women's brackets. People always think of conspiracies. The truth is, there's so much going on. You're just trying to get the bracket laid out correctly. You're not too worried about the subplots. So I doubt anything untoward happened in there in terms of trying to get some good drama going. It's just too much of a quick process after when you're trying to put this bracket together.
Are you saying I'm a conspiracy theorist all of a sudden with softball? Is that what you're insinuating
no,
here?
I did not say. I didn't know. Present company I did not know was. I guess I was talking to Patty Gasso. Patty, you're 50 and 3. Lighten up. Just throw the ball over the plate. You're probably going to win.
I don't know, though. I mean, when you say that it's mostly regional, last time I checked, Boston University is nowhere near Oklahoma, and there are plenty of other regionals that they could have gone to. You know, I was reading through the NCAA's reasoning on the website earlier today, saying that most of the regionals are constructed geographically, and except if they don't want, you know, the teams from the same league to be in the same regional. Patriot League only has one qualifier. It's the automatic qualifier from their tournament. That's BU. You're telling me that the closest they could get them was Oklahoma? I mean, when you're Patty Gasso and you see that, and there's so many 4 seeds or you know, the lower seed in the bracket that you could put with them, and you pick one team that they lost to out of 3, I see why she's kind of frustrated.
Here's what I get. Wouldn't you, if you're going to have to play what's really a 16 seed is what we're talking about. We call them 4 seeds, but they're really, in basketball vernacular, 16 seeds. Wouldn't you want to play a team that did beat you rather than a team that
you don't know anything about?
You just think, we're going to kill those guys. Yeah. I mean, to me, they did OU a favor. They're going to have their attention. We see lots of 1-4 regional openers where, you know, the teams don't have a marquee victory, don't have any reason to get excited. Give every reason for your team to get overconfident.
All right, conspiracy theories over here for just a minute.
And let me tell you, the last thing I want to do is take up for the NCAA softball committee. I've had dealings with them for 25 years, and they're largely kooks, but I think they're innocent at this time.
Barry mentioned earlier Missouri being 28-27, and Brooke, interesting story behind 28-27, Missouri to get into the tournament. I don't want to say they bought a 500 record, but they definitely didn't shy away from doing some things to make sure they had a 500 record, right?
You know, I would kind of say that they bought it.
Okay.
There was money exchange. There was, you know, they had an opportunity. Wichita State was scheduled for them to play later in the season. When Missouri got there, they were, let's see, somewhere in here. They were 26-24 entering that weekend. Wichita State was 29-18, a 31 RPI. So, and Missouri was right around the same RPI. Their RPI boosted because they're playing the SEC, which is just one of those power softball conferences. And so rather than playing Wichita State, a team that has beaten plenty of top-ranked RPI teams, they nearly beat OU in Norman. They had a pretty significant lead later in the game, and OU managed to rally and win. But still, rather than playing that game, Missouri bought them out, paid $5,000, and instead scheduled to play Arkansas Pine Bluff that was 15-27 with a 263 RPI. Kind of the reason behind that is that a team that is below 500, I believe, cannot make the NCAA tournament. So when you look at that, I don't think Missouri played in the SEC conference tournament. So they were doing kind of everything they could to make sure they were just above 500. And to me, what kind of message is that sending to your team, that you don't think that they can beat Wichita State? What does that say about how you feel about their tournament chances? You know, how they're actually going to fare in the NCAA tournament? What does that say about your confidence in this team? To me, that's just, it kind of falls in the realm of sportsmanship and gameship, and to me it says that they're poor sports and the gamesmanship is not there.
Okay, conspiracy theory police. Do you buy what do you say, Officer Trammell?
They absolutely bought a winning record, and this is where the committee, you know, the committee had some strange deals with Missouri, but it wasn't sending them to Norman, it was letting them in the field in the first place. If you've got that information in the committee room, you say, hey, you guys are out, you're not in. This is not a we're not buying spots in this tournament. So the committee should not have even let Missouri in. If they're going to go to scheduling hijinks, there's too many scheduling nonsense before the season to let people manipulate the schedule in the middle of a season or at the end of a season is nonsense. The committee should have said, no Missouri.
Well, they're coming anyway. Missouri-Tulsa will play the 2-3 game, and OU-Boston, obviously, Friday will play in that 1-4 matchup. Do you guys expect anything? I mean, I guess you never know. Oklahoma was faced with a near, early bouncing in the regional last year. Then they come back and don't lose again in the entire tournament. But, I mean, this is a team that has been pretty focused from the beginning. Do you guys expect anything other than Oklahoma victorious coming out of this weekend, Brooke?
No, I mean, I think ultimately at the end of this, OU will leave their regional. They'll win. They'll end up hosting a super regional. But I think that playing BU, kind of like what Barry said, it is a favor to them. It's a team that they are very motivated against because last year OU did lose to North Dakota State in the first game, and it was one of those kind of 1-16 upsets in basketball terms. But this year they are motivated. When they played BU the first time around, I think over half the team was sick with the flu or a stomach bug. It was very sickly. It was really gross. It was very contagious. And it just kind of really affected this team throughout that tournament in Las Cruces, New Mexico. So I think that they're going to be motivated for that. I think the biggest thing is for Parker Conrad. She hasn't been a major factor in the pitching staff, but she was really big in the Friday night win against Iowa State in the Big 12 tournament. She's got to, kind of stay focused and stay with her team when Missouri comes to town, when they play Missouri, if that ends up happening in the way that the bracket kind of shakes out. I'm not too concerned about Paige Lowry. She said that she's pretty disassociated from the whole Missouri thing because it's been 2 years since she was there. The same coach is not there anymore. Tulsa, I think, could present kind of a problem. They presented a problem last year. They have a really great pitcher in Emily Watson. The pitching in this regional as a whole should be really good because BU has the Patriot League Pitcher of the Year and Freshman of the Year, Allie Dubois, kind of a mini Paige Parker in winning those two awards simultaneously. But I think at the end of the day, OU may have some scares. They may go down sometimes. They haven't been as sharp recently, but I think that we'll see them end up winning on Sunday.
Now, if Oklahoma comes out of this regional, they'll host a super regional. Barry, it could be Oklahoma State, because while they're the 2 seed in Fayetteville, they've shown they're capable of winning that regional, and then we'd have a Bedlam super regional. What's your feeling about Oklahoma State surviving that road regional and potentially setting up that Bedlam super regional?
Well, it won't be easy. It never is. You're on the road against a good team in Arkansas. So, but it's not a death sentence. It's not like going to Florida or UCLA or Washington or one of the huge mega powers in college softball. Let's see,
13.
That'd be 13.
Yep.
Arkansas is
Yep.
13 seed. So you got a puncher's chance. Cowgirls have played well at times. Didn't play well at the end of the season necessarily, particularly in the Big 12 tournament. But they can go to Fayetteville with a decent chance, and that would be great for softball if we had a super regional of Bedlam. We're going to have. Looks like we're going to have a Sooner Cowboy showdown on the golf links at Karsten Creek. It'd be fun to have the same thing in softball down at Marita Hines Field.
Lastly, guys, as we look at the big picture, not a lot has changed. I mean, we didn't know exactly where sort of those top 8 teams were going to fall, top 10 teams were going to fall in terms of seeding in the NCAA tournament. Oregon, Florida, we talked about them a week ago. UCLA moved ahead of Oklahoma in the national seeding, but then it's Washington, Florida State, Georgia, Arizona State teams we talked about as being sort of the teams to watch. Any surprises, anything? Are we expecting this to be, it looks like a big Pac-12 resurgence, Barry, and really with the national seedings coming out, it looks like the selection committee agrees that the Pac-12 may be seeing a little bit of a return to those glory days.
And I sort of think it's fun because this is the softball I'm used to. Back in the old days when 4 or 5 Pac-12 teams would make the Women's World Series, and you'd have UCLA, Arizona playing for the title year after year after year. So if it wasn't those guys, Washington or Cal or whoever might be rearing their heads. So that's great for the Pac-12. It's a conference that needs some good news athletically, and they're getting it in softball.
It is Oregon, though, at the top of the pile, which is a change. But it's interesting to see that 2 seed, Brooke, in Florida, a team that you mentioned the SEC, how they've become such a strong top-to-bottom conference. They run through the SEC tournament. They're obviously experienced. Kelly Barnhill is back in the pitching circle. I can't believe she's still at Florida, for crying out loud. She's been there forever. But that's got to strike some fear into people, seeing Florida at that 2 spot, knowing how good they are.
Exactly. I think that when you see the dominance of the Pac-12 and the SEC, OU softball has to kind of wish that they were in one of those conferences, because they could boost their RPI even more. They could be more battle-tested going into this postseason. I think that those Pac-12 and the SEC teams definitely have the edge compared to the Big 12 teams or the ACC team in Florida State. And I think that OU probably wishes that they were able to play more of those teams. OU, though, did make the smart scheduling decision to go out to Oregon a couple weeks ago when they had a bye in their Big 12 schedule, and they played Oregon, lost to Oregon, and then also played 2 games against Oregon State and won both of those. So I think that OU sees Oregon up there, and they kind of had the same reaction they did when they saw that BU was in their bracket, and they said, hey, we want to get to the Women's College World Series, and we want to get to play Oregon again. We want to kind of avenge that loss and make it right. So I think that they feel good about that. I think the biggest surprise to me wasn't in one of the top 8 seeds. It was in the top 14, and looking at those matchups, and not to get back on the conspiracy theory train, but the fact that you have UCLA and Arizona matching up in a super regional when it kind of seemed like that would be more of a Women's College World Series situation or a game that you would see featured there. I'm not saying it was done just for ratings, but I'm saying that the TV ratings are going to be really good. I'm very interested to see if both of those teams make it out of their regionals, play each other in the super regional. That would be my pick to watch.
Brooke can drive the conspiracy train. Barry can be the conspiracy police. We've got lots more softball to talk about. It all starts Friday afternoon. Oklahoma State, Wichita State in the regional at Fayetteville. That's a 1:30 start. We'll be on ESPNU. And then Oklahoma, Boston play at 6 p.m. That'll be on ESPN2. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.